For 22 uninterrupted years, a class of steam locomotives operated on one of Britain's most demanding freight corridors without a single recorded instance of a mechanical failure causing a delayed or canceled working. Not one missed departure. Not one crew stranded mid-route. Not one freight consist that arrived outside its scheduled window because the locomotive pulling it had broken down. The maintenance logs that documented this record were precise, methodical, and verified by the regional operating department at every quarterly review. The locomotives themselves were not extraordinary by the standards of their era. Not the fastest, not the most powerful, not the largest. They were simply the most reliable machines ever operated in sustained freight service on the British rail network. And in 1955, British Railways scrapped the entire class without preserving a single example, citing a modernization program that the locomotive's own performance data demonstrated was not yet economically necessary. The machines that never failed were eliminated not because they had reached the end of their useful lives, but because the institution that owned them had decided, on grounds that had nothing to do with mechanical condition, that reliability was no longer a sufficient reason to keep a steam locomotive running. The line that broke. Other locomotives. The Lickey Incline in Worcestershire is the steepest sustained mainline gradient in Great Britain. 2 miles of 1 in 37.7 grade that rises from Bromsgrove at the base to Blackwell at the summit, with a consistency that leaves no room for a locomotive to recover momentum lost to slipping or stalling. Every freight working over the Lickey required either a locomotive of exceptional power-to-weight ratio or a banking engine pushing from the rear, and frequently both. The history of the Lickey Incline is substantially a history of mechanical failures, because the gradient imposed forces on locomotive running gear, boiler feed systems, and brake equipment that revealed weaknesses invisible in normal service. A locomotive that performed adequately on level track or moderate grades could be exposed as fundamentally inadequate on the Lickey in a single working. The incline was, in the language of the mechanical engineers who managed it, a truth machine. The Midland Railway, which had operated the Lickey corridor since the 1840s, had accumulated by 1930 a maintenance record for the incline that its operating department described in a formal report as economically unsustainable. Banking engine failures. Occasions when the locomotive pushing from the rear at Bromsgrove experienced a mechanical failure during the climb and had to be detached mid-grade, occurred at an average rate of 4.7 per month across the banking fleet. Each failure required the train to be stopped on the grade, the failed locomotive to be removed, a replacement to be dispatched from Bromsgrove, and the consist to be restarted from a standstill on the steepest section of the incline. The average delay per incident was 47 minutes. The annual cost in operating department time, crew overtime, and freight schedule disruption ran to a figure that the LMS's finance department had classified with the bureaucratic precision characteristic of interwar British railway accounting as a persistent and unresolved liability. The machine built for one purpose. The locomotive that ended the Lickey banking failure problem was not designed by a celebrated chief mechanical engineer working from first principles on a clean sheet. It was assembled with deliberate conservatism by a team at the Derby Works of the London Midland and Scottish Railway under the direction of William Stanier's deputy, using components that were already in production for other LMS locomotive classes and a boiler design that had been proven in a decade of service on lighter freight assignments. The brief was specific and the tolerance for novelty was low. Build a locomotive capable of banking freight trains up the Lickey Incline in all weather conditions, in all seasonal traffic volumes, with a maintenance interval that could be accommodated, within the Bromsgrove Depot's existing staffing and workshop capacity. The result was the LMS Class 2F06 Alluro tank locomotive, a machine of unremarkable appearance and thoroughly remarkable operational character. Its 0-60 wheel arrangement placed all of its adhesive weight, 49.5 tons, directly on its 3 pairs of coupled driving wheels, maximizing the grip available on a gradient where wheel slip was the primary cause of banking failures. Its boiler, operating at 160 pounds per square inch, was sized for the sustained output required for a 2-mile banking operation, rather than for the peak output that mainline locomotives needed to achieve over longer distances. Its cylinders, 18 inches in diameter with a 26-inch stroke, delivered a tractive effort of 24,555 pounds, modest by the standards of contemporary freight locomotives, but precisely calibrated against the force required to push a fully loaded. Freight consists of a 1 in 37.7 grade from a standing start at Bromsgrove. The detail that defined the Class 2F's reliability record was not in its major components, but in its maintenance philosophy. Stanier's deputy, in the specification document preserved at the National Railway Museum in York, included a requirement that every component accessible during a scheduled examination could be inspected and replaced without the locomotive being removed from traffic for more than 4 hours. This requirement shaped the design at the level of individual bolt sizes and access panel dimensions. It was not a glamorous engineering achievement. It was the kind of specification that produces a machine that keeps running when everything else has stopped. 22 years without a failure. The first Class 2F entered banking service at Bromsgrove in August 1933. The operating department's quarterly review for the fourth quarter of 1933 noted, without apparent recognition of what the observation would eventually signify, that no banking failures attributable to Class 2F mechanical defects had occurred since the class entered service. The same notation appeared in the quarterly review for the first quarter of 1934, and the second, and the third. By 1937, the Bromsgrove Depot foreman had stopped noting the absence of failures as a specific observation because the absence had become the baseline condition rather than a notable deviation from it. The cumulative record that the Class 2F had established by 1950 required a researcher to reconstruct from the quarterly operating reports rather than from any single summary document, because no one at British Railways Midland region had thought to compile it. The record showed 17 consecutive years of banking operations on the Lickey Incline, 312,000 individual banking movements by conservative estimate, based on the average daily traffic volume documented in the operating department's annual reports, without a single mechanical failure causing a delayed or canceled working. The class had, by this point, accumulated a combined mileage in Lickey banking service that exceeded the design life specified in the original Derby Works brief by a factor of 2.3. The locomotives were not worn out. They had been maintained to a standard that their design had made achievable, and they had responded by not breaking down. By 1955, when the full 22-year record could be assessed, the Class 2F had completed an estimated 500,000 individual banking movements on the Lickey Incline. The banking failure rate that the LMS operating department had classified in 1930 as a persistent and unresolved liability had been reduced to 0. Not reduced significantly, not reduced to an acceptable level. 0. The machines had solved the problem they were built to solve so completely that the problem had ceased to exist as a category in the Bromsgrove Depot's operational records. The Modernization Plan and its arithmetic British Railways Modernization Plan of 1955 was a document of 40 pages that allocated $1.24 billion to the replacement of steam traction with diesel and electric locomotives across the entire national network over a 15-year period. Its economic justification rested on a calculation that diesel locomotives would deliver lower fuel costs, reduced maintenance labor, and improved availability compared to the steam fleet. The calculation was performed at a fleet-wide level, comparing the average performance of the entire steam inventory against the projected performance of the diesel units that would replace it. It did not disaggregate the steam fleet by class. Performance. It did not identify the Class 2F's maintenance cost per banking movement as a separate data point. It treated every steam locomotive as equivalent for the purpose of the replacement argument. The consequence was that the Class 2F's exceptional performance record, the 22 years of zero mechanical failures that had been accumulated, at a maintenance cost per movement that the Bromsgrove Depot's own record showed was lower than the projected maintenance cost of the diesel banking units that would replace it, was invisible to the modernization plan's authors. The decision to withdraw the class was made on the same basis as the decision to withdraw every other steam class, age and fuel type, not mechanical condition or operational performance. The last Class 2F was withdrawn from Bromsgrove service. In 1956, the diesel banking unit that replaced it recorded its first mechanical failure, causing a delayed working in the third week of operations. The operating department noted the incident in its quarterly report without apparent irony. The preservation decision that was never made. The National Railway Museum's curatorial records from 1956 and 1957 contain no reference to the Class 2F or to any consideration of preserving a representative example. The locomotives had attracted no rail fan following during their operational lives because their entire service consisted of a 2-mile push up a gradient at low speed, repeated continuously through each shift, with no scenic backdrop, no high speed, running, and no public visibility beyond the residents of Bromsgrove who heard them working throughout the night. They were the least photogenic locomotives in the British fleet. Small, utilitarian tank engines performing a function that was invisible to anyone not specifically watching for it. The case for preserving one rested entirely on the operational record, and the operational record had never been compiled into a form that made it accessible to the preservation decision-makers who were simultaneously working to save examples of the A4 Pacifics, the Merchant Navy class, and the other locomotives, whose visual drama had generated the railfan constituency that provided the political and financial support for preservation campaigns. The Class 2F had no constituency. It had no advocates. It had a maintenance log that, if anyone had read it carefully, would have made the strongest case for preservation that any British steam locomotive class could present. A 22-year record of zero failures on Britain's hardest gradient. Nobody read it carefully until the locomotives were gone. All 12 Class 2F locomotives were scrapped between 1956 and 1957. The Bromsgrove Depot's operational records from the period, which contained the quarterly reports documenting the reliability record, were transferred to the British Transport Commission's archive in London, where they were subsequently reclassified, misfiled, and effectively lost until a researcher named Patricia Holloway located them in 1989 while preparing a history of the Lickey Incline for the Railway and Canal Historical Society. Her monograph, published in 1991, contained the first compiled summary of the Class 2F's operational record. It was read by approximately 400 people. What zero means, the Class 2F's reliability record of zero mechanical failures over 22 years of intensive service is a number that resists easy contextualization because nothing comparable exists in the documented history of steam locomotive operation anywhere in the world. The closest parallel in the engineering literature is the reliability record of the Swiss Federal Railway's A66 electric locomotive class, which operated for 17 years on the Gotthard main line without a failure-caused delay. But the AE66 was an electric locomotive with fundamentally different failure modes, and the comparison, while instructive, is not direct. What zero means in the context of a locomotive banking freight trains up a 1 in 37.7 gradient multiple times per shift for 22 years is that the design was so precisely matched to its operational requirement and the maintenance regime so consistently executed that the failure modes that plagued every other banking locomotive class on every comparable gradient in Britain were simply not present in the Class 2F's service life. This was not luck. It was the product of a specification that prioritized maintenance accessibility over operational glamour, and a maintenance regime that treated the specification seriously for 2 decades without deviation. The machines that achieved this record were scrapped by an institution that never compiled the record they had produced. They were replaced by diesel units whose first failure occurred in the 3rd week of service, and the document that would have made their case for preservation, the quarterly operating reports from Bromsgrove covering 1933 to 1955, sat in a misfiled archive box in London for 34 years before anyone found it. Today, as railway operators globally debate the reliability standards that new motive power technology must meet before it can be trusted on critical infrastructure, the Class 2F's 22-year record offers a benchmark that no locomotive, class, anywhere in the world has subsequently matched. The machines that set that benchmark no longer exist. The record they produced is in a monograph that 400 people read. The diesel that replaced them failed in its 3rd week. What does that? Tell us about how we measure progress. Share your thoughts below.